beef out. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and make another batch of the sauce and then start cooking the onions in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the handashi, which is, here's about a tablespoon and a half of handashi, into a cup of warm water. Like I said, that's going to become the soup base. Then we have about 3 tablespoons of mirin. We're going to go ahead and put that in the pan. Just under a cup of rice wine. Got about half a cup of soy sauce. A quarter a cup of sugar. And then our 1 cup of hot water and handashi mixture. I'm going to go ahead and let that start cooking. And we're going to also add our onions in there so that they can get nice and soft. We'll cook these until they're soft and a bit translucent. And this process should take about 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how you cut your onions. I cut these a little bit thick, so it might take a little bit longer than that. So you just let it cook in the sauce, the soup base, and you'll just let it simmer until these start getting cooked a little bit more, and then you'll add the beef in and let that simmer for a while until the rice is done. Like I said, this is a Japanese dish. It's called Gyudon, or Gyudon. It's basically just beef and rice bowl is what it is. So you'll have your beef and your onions with this kind of sweet sauce, and it'll be over top of a bowl of rice, and that's just how you eat it. You can garnish it with a little bit of red ginger. I generally don't, so I don't have that here with me. But this is a very simple dish to do, and I absolutely love it. My friends love it as well. And I can't wait to go have the original when I go back to Japan. So we'll just go ahead and let this cook, and then we'll wait for our rice to get done, and then we'll be ready to eat. So just a little bit of information about the ingredients that I am using. Some of these are going to be hard to find in a local grocery store or anything like that, but you can find them at most Asian markets if there's one close by. One of the ingredients that I really like to use, which is the hardest to find, I think, is the mirin, which is just like a sweet kind of rice wine cooking sauce. It's not really a rice wine, but it's a sweet sauce that goes in the cooking. The handashi is another one that's kind of hard to find. It's just a fish stock base. You can also use a miso soup base if you can't find this, or you can make a, I made a variation of it, but I used beef broth, and I used a little bit of nori, which is seaweed, and a little bit of ginger, and cooked those together, and then took out the nori and the ginger, and just had the beef broth, and it was flavored kind of like the sea because of the seaweed, and it worked with the dish. It didn't make it authentic, and it didn't taste as good as when you make it with the dashi. Another word of warning, some of the recipes I've seen call for like a lot of dashi, but dashi is very strong, especially to people who are not used to a fish soup. So I use it in moderation, very little bit, that way it doesn't overpower the dish. The Philly steaks that I'm using, these are from Walmart. The only reason I use this stuff is because it saves me a lot of time in cutting the beef, and it gets it a lot thinner than what I can do by slicing it myself. It is perfect, but sometimes it's hard to find. They like to hide it in their frozen food section sometimes. Again, like I said earlier, never use steakums. It makes the dish taste awful. And the rice wine, you'll want to go with rice cooking wine or michiru, which is distilled rice spirits. You don't want to go with rice wine vinegar. It's got too much of a twang, and it'll throw off the entire taste of the dish. So this is the main part of my ingredients. Like I said before, I have the short grain rice, which will make it really sticky. You really don't want to use jasmine, or instant rice is the worst because it doesn't stick together. and it's just got a weird taste. So our onions are cooking. It'll still be another about 5 minutes or so, but I wanted to give you a little bit of information about the ingredients that I was using. Alright, so some of my onions are starting to go a bit translucent, which means you can start to see through them. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the temperature down to a little bit below medium and add the beef back in. Go ahead and mix that up. I'm going to go ahead and let this continue to cook while my rice is still cooking. Rice takes a lot longer than the rest of this dish. And I'll come back every once in a while to stir this. That way the meat that is above the liquid will be submerged for a little bit to absorb more of the flavor of the liquid that's in the wok. Alright guys, our rice is done. Our beef and onions are done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and scoop out a nice portion of rice. As you can see, it sticks together quite well. When you're done putting the rice in the bowl, you'll just take and grab a nice generous portion of the beef and onions. Just layer that right on top. And then you can go ahead and add just a little bit of the juice to help flavor the rest of the rice. You don't want to add too much. You don't want to make it into a soup, because then the rice just comes apart and it makes it harder to eat. So here is your gyudon. This is beef and rice. Some people garnish it with red ginger. I don't. That's why it's not here. So all that's left is to take out your hashi, your chopsticks, break them apart, and gyudon is ready to eat. I'm David, this is Gyudon, and thanks for letting me cook for you.